Good evening. We're going to do these less frequently because they're killing me, but we're going to still do them. And I want to have voices that I think are interesting and important. And if you want to talk to me on one of these live town halls, tell me. And you can ask questions throughout the night. But tonight I wanted to have on some people that are familiar with finance. And we're talking finance for campaigns and how campaigns are put together and how we hire staff and how we pay for commercials and everything else. Two funny stories to kick this off, or not so funny, but the question I always get is from people who are new to politics, how they assume they're like, well, when does the party start paying for your staff, or when does the party kick in money? Well, the answer is they don't. I mean, they may kick in a little bit here and there, but it really comes up to the candidates and the candidates' team of finding the sources to pay for the campaign. And to that point, I remember in the past we've had people come into our offices and say, "We really don't like your computers." And I'm like, "Well, I'm sorry you don't like our computers. This is not the public library, or this is not a service that's providing a service to you." Or people have said to me, "The phones your campaign has are not very good." Well, that's all donated, or we purchased it, or we found sources to help lend it to us. And my campaign in particular is very, very grassroots. So without further delay, let's talk about how we do this. We have here Nicole Hushler. Nicole is my campaign manager. Nicole, say hello.
Hey, everybody.
Okay. We have Cindy on the line. Cindy, you want to give an introduction real quick? I don't know how to introduce you. You're kind of a jack of all trades.
Well, what I'm doing for you are the house parties. I'm coordinating the house parties.
Which is the worst name in all of politics. When you hear the word house party, I thought, was there a DJ there? What's happening? House parties. Go ahead.
DJ say we'll talk about that because we are doing some interesting things with these house parties now that we're online.
We are. We'll talk about that. But house parties are a form of fundraising where we have people. The way we do it is the opposite of the wine cave. We have literally sometimes backyard barbecues, and where people get together and we share some thoughts, and people kick in some money at someone's house. And then we have Amanda. Amanda, say hi.
Hey, happy Friday. It's Friday.
Amanda's a long-time campaign veteran and someone who's been involved in fundraising on campaigns all over the place, right?
You're there and everywhere.
Yeah.
But this is my hometown.
You're from here, but you've worked in where? Minneapolis, Minnesota, or something like that?
Minnesota, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, California.
DC.
DC.
Yep. And so we'll talk about campaign fundraising. So let's start off with Nicole Hushler. Nicole, you have been involved in campaign finance and helping candidates finance. How many congressional races have you been on?
You're my 24th.
Wow.
24 congressional races.
What's wrong with me?
So Nicole, and a lot of your expertise comes in the fundraising role.
That is where I essentially got my start. We talked about it on my first live stream with you, but in the Southern Tier, and I was given the advice from a mentor early on that in campaign finance, it's always the first hire and the last fire. So it's the best place to get your initial experience, and then you start to dabble in the other departments as you go. But yes, I started, my first finance director position was actually as Kathy Hochul's finance director in the very district we're fighting for today, back in 2011.
So there's there's three major parts of a campaign. The first part is field, which is seeing how many voters are out there. To make it simple, what's the total number of votes you need to win, and who are those votes coming from? So that's what field does. Yeah. So the field has a go-to number, and they find out who's voted in the past. How can we identify them? How can we contact them? How can we make sure we vote in this election? That's field. That involves door knocking, phone calls, however else we're going to reach those voters. That's field. The other big part of a campaign is what? Communications.
Communication.
Where that's press releases, that's follow-upping on media, that's pushing out the messaging. People hate the way I've done communications, but I think it's been pretty effective.
What are you talking about?
Well, traditional campaign people sometimes would like me to not be so much myself. I have the biggest challenge with this part of traditional campaigns because it seems to me that so often that people would come in and say, we like this about you, but we don't want X, Y, Z about you, and we want you to change and become somebody else. And I'm like, this is who I am. Too bad. I'm not going to change my positions. I'm not going to change who I am.
No, and I think it's been your strength. I mean, I'll speak to that. That when I first met you, I could see how that would be the traditional feeling would be. It makes me a little nervous that there's a candidate running their own social media, but I've learned very quickly that it is a strength. And right now, that's what people want is somebody who's going to say what they mean and mean what they say.
I went to a class at the Democratic National Committee's about new candidates class, and it was all about how to show that you're real. And it was like get your campaign team to make videos that look homemade. And I'm like, yeah, I think I've been leading the way on that one for a long time.
Yeah, weird. There would have to be a class about how to be more authentic instead of just being it.
Yeah, it's kind of shocking to me. But listen, but I do get pushback for my typos and this and that. But people have to realize most of this comes from me, and I do have the best person I ever had in communications right now. That does help me put together press releases that are good, and we have a good mailing list, and we have outreach to the country. But I am proud that we're authentic. So the first two parts are field and communications. The third part, and everything else relies on it, sadly.
Best part
is finance. And finance involves finding ways to fund your campaign, creating a budget. How much are you going to pay for field? How much are you going to pay for communications? How much are you going to put in commercials? How much are you going to use for opening your offices? And where's that money going to come from? Is it going to come from organizations that support you? Is it going to come from your own personal expenses? Is it going to come from Lord knows where else?
Do you want us to go through the different tools, the different fundraising tools? We don't have to get in depth, but just list them.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think I should let our finance director go through those, Miss Amanda.
Hey. So the bread and butter of fundraising, like it or not, and no candidate likes it, is call time. That is where you have a team that goes through and finds phone numbers, finds donors, finds people in your district and also, frankly, around the country that care about the things that your candidate cares about, that want to see your candidate go to office. Also, we put them in the uncomfortable position all the time that we have them call their family, call their friends from college, call the kid that they bunked with at summer camp that one year, call their postman or whoever. We make them kind of lean on their personal contacts who know them and know that they would do a good job, that trust them, and that's how you get the ball rolling.
So you saw. Oh, sorry,
Go ahead.
Amanda. Go ahead. No,
go ahead.
No, you may have seen my early campaign video where I'm pretending to call my grandma. And listen, that is not too far from the truth. What they do is they take your phone, they go through every single contact you have. If there's people because of legal considerations or whatever else you don't want to call, you take them off the list. But pretty much everybody else, they say, well, this guy, how much do you think he's worth? And the first time I went through it, I was like, are you guys nuts? But that's the only way to do this. And it's sad. And some of the experiences I've had, I'm just being completely blunt because no one talks about this. Calling my best friend from college, from law school, who I played basketball with every single week and having to hang the phone up on me.
It's probably harder, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's
calling people.
Than calling a stranger.
It hurts because sometimes people you love, they don't have, either they don't want to give or let's be honest, it can damage the relationship.
Yeah.
Sure.
And you're doing it because you really, really, really care about what you're into and you're trying to make the country better. And you don't want to make it about you, but sometimes people think, well, this is just because I have a choice between fixing my kid's teeth and giving you $500. So I'll take your comments after this, but one more thing I want to say about it is when I first ran for office, and I said the newspaper asked me, "Do you like call time?" Like it was a judge of my quality as a candidate.
Nobody does.
And
Nobody does.
well,
They say
like
yes, they're lying.
and to the thing where I'm authentic, I said, no normal human being would want to do that.
No.
And then for the next 3 years of my life, every time I went, he doesn't like call time. He's not real. And I'm like, well, who would like that?
I don't care if you're Lieutenant Governor Kathy Hochul, Barack Obama, Kirsten Gillibrand. I mean, they just see it as a necessary evil, right? It's a part of the gig, but nobody likes that.
But it gets better the longer you're in this, because you get people are either financially capable of doing it, and or who want to do it, and you start to create a little bit of a network. Like it's definitely easier this time than last time. But go ahead, Amanda. Amanda or Nicole, whoever else. What do you think of my comments here?
Back to call time, but let's go through the other major pieces of a finance option.
You've got sort of direct candidate to donor call time, right?
Yep.
You have your digital, which are the millions of emails that are going out to people's mailboxes, and I'm sure if you're watching, you're getting them from 1,000 different candidates. You're getting them from 1,000 different special interest groups. If you're a Planned Parenthood person, if you're a League of Conservation Voters person, if you're whatever you are, there are groups on the campaign side of things that make it a point to share your email list. So when you get the email from a candidate you've never heard before in your life, it's all of us trying to link up and connect and get to know each other and say, hey, you're fighting for this over here, so we're going to send your email to so-and-so over there.
And once you give to anybody over $500, you get put in the national database under the laws of the United States. So every single candidate or private interest of any sort who wants to do fundraising is likely to call you. That's the dirty secret.
Which really over $100. It becomes public record, and some campaigns choose to disclose all low donor information as well. But yes, there's a minimum that if you give over that threshold, it has to be reported, the amount, the person, and their employer and occupation.
So if you talk to Amanda for a second, part of what she does and our team does is scour the country for people they know have supported similar candidates and get me their phone numbers. And I call people I don't know and say, hey, did you ever hear of NY27? And that's part of my job. That's what I do. And listen, you can imagine how well it goes.
Okay, but the Democrats are a big tech party, right? So you have groups like 314.org that are devoted to getting more scientists into office.
Yeah, right.
They will send you lists. They have email lists, they have whatever. If you want this scientist over here, you can also help this legislation to get scientific evidence-based, thinkers, policy, whatever into office this way. Also help this person over here. So, I mean, most of it is terribly annoying, but it's how we organize as a big tent party.
And that's a good pivot into labor PACs and labor organizations, right? There's pretty much a PAC for everything. When people hear the word political action committee or PAC, they automatically think dark money, super PAC, evil. When frankly, there's a difference. And Amanda, you're welcome to go into more detail in terms of the difference between super PAC and PAC. But I would just say, as pretty much any industry you can think of, yes, there are corporate PACs, of course, there are labor union PACs where the members of a given union, right, they pay their dues, and those dues will make up the funds that the union's political action committee can then distribute. But I don't care if you're a funeral director, a chiropractor, a realtor. There is literally a political action committee for just about everything.
So let me cut you out. So, sorry, Nicole, keep going. I'm sorry.
I was going to say they're not all evil. That's all. It's about banding together to be able to promote certain legislation that is in the interest of their industry.
So for me personally, go ahead, Amanda. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's freedom of association. We come together in these little factions, especially nationwide, of the realtors, the funeral directors, the confectioners and tobacco producers, which is a weird sort of umbrella group that exists, but they exist, and they work together, and they decide like this is what's in our industry's interest, so let's figure out who can help us out.
But Amanda, what I would say though is yes, that's true. But and I listen. Oops, you guys see me still or no?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. I would say you're right, 100%. But I still like there's PACs that I feel very comfortable with taking money from, and I'm grateful for their money. I remember the first time I received a check from a union, I was in front of the union brothers and sisters, and I was moved. I was like, because I know this is working people's money that believe in me, and I'm proud to take their money because, yes, I want to fight for you, and I believe in your interests. So I will proudly take this money and contribute to a cause that I believe in, which is fighting for the same values you represent. Now, I also know when you call certain corporations, they're going to say, hey, will you advocate? They'll literally ask you, will you advocate on behalf of these issues? If you will, we'll give you money. It's literally a quid pro quo. They want you to do certain things on their behalf. Now, to this point, I've never taken any corporate money. Now, there's times where I've said to myself, just take their money and who cares what they think? But that's also seems pretty immoral to me. So I have not done that. But I will take from organizations that I believe in. And there's lots of organizations that I do believe in, but I have not taken any corporate money at this time. Go ahead. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. You wear that as a badge of honor. And I think, in 2018, especially, it was, kind of a big deal for candidates to come and say, look, I'm not taking any corporate money, no corporate donations. And I will say, like, that means something to a bunch of political nerds. Hi, welcome to all of us. But to Joe Voter, it's a little different, right? Like, there are a lot of people that don't understand, like, that corporations can't give you money anyway, and they have PACs, and there are layers, and there are different ways that money flows through, and the system has been set up to filter money the way it's going to come in. So when you look at a candidate's financial statement, you see who they're taking money from, it's, for me personally, it's not always corporation equals bad. I think it gets painted that way because that's an easy message. But if you look at, this candidate takes money from the NRA versus this candidate takes money from Planned Parenthood, they're both special interests, but they're two very different interests.
But that's right. Who are you?
Vote matters, right?
What PAC are you taking money from? But there are PACs I would never take money from, and Nicole, you've seen me. I've been in situations where people offered me money, and I said, nope, I don't want your money. And there's been times where even I felt that was crazy. What did I do that for? But listen, I think the system is designed to create corruption, and it's designed for guys like me to fail. Let me say it again. It's designed for regular people to fail.
Sure.
And I can say that boldly. It's designed for self-funding millionaires like Chris Jacobs to succeed. Because it's so different. It's getting harder and harder for regular people to run. It's harder than it ever was.
Well, we should talk about that a little bit, Nate.
But I just want to share one story. I'm sorry. Like when I first ran, and I had raised. Okay, when I ran for town supervisor, I think I had I don't know, God knows how much money. It was like literally like money out of my pocket and money from selling my mom's pies. It was like no money at all. And I was naive enough that if I raised a little bit of money, a few 10,000 here and there, we could run for Congress. So when I first got my first filing, it was $43,000, and I was proud. I was proud.
You mean for Congress?
Yes.
Okay. I was like, town supervisor?
No. Okay. When I first ran for Congress, my first filing was $43,000. And I looked at my little brother. I said, we raised $43,000. The first newspaper in the Buffalo News was, this guy's a bum. He only raised $43,000. Now that was money from basically everybody I knew. And so I realized at that moment and I was taken into task, and I was told, you're not doing call time. You don't have, but the real story was, hey, you're not rich and we don't like you. That was the real story. That was the real story.
You're not rich. Also, I think at the time, right, you didn't, you were sort of wading through the waters on your own, didn't know things about, how to compile call time lists. You didn't have
the 3 of us on your campaign yet?
Yeah, there's
we're definitely better at it than we ever were. And now we can bring in hundreds of thousands of dollars because we have people like you who can pull national lists. But here's the thing is, even if we have Cindy, we'll get to house parties in a second, even if Cindy does the killer, and I'm not trying to be the demotivational speaker here. I'm just trying to talk about the reality that we face.
No, people love that in the public.
Even if Cindy does the killer house party of the world, we're going to bring in what, 15,000, 10,000? That's the best ever we've ever done from a house party.
Sure.
We know that Chris Jacobs can have one party and raise $1 million.
Well, let me speak to that real quick.
Go ahead.
So, and I'm saying this with a background in working in some very red districts and some very rural districts. Like, somehow I'm masochistic to the point where that's where I like to work. Working in very red districts and very blue collar districts where the Democrats are a lot of blue dogs. They are union people. They're my dad. Frankly, my dad worked for the NFTA for 33 years before he retired. Like, they only have so much of an income. They're not millionaire coastal Democrats. Yep. So you get into those elections, you get into those campaigns, and I had a candidate in rural Minnesota, and we would call people in California, and we'd call people in New York, and they would say, well, why am I giving to you? You're not in my state. Yes, I know that. However, you need Democrats across the country. You need Democratic support here, there, and everywhere. And
so that's why we have to do call time. That's why we have to do digital. That's why we have to do national outreach.
We have to do national, and it's something that Republicans love to pounce on. They love to say, oh, this Democrat got all their money from New York and California. Well, yeah, that's where the money is. And also, like, there's only so much that we can squeeze out of people who are working class Democrats who are like a cornerstone of the party.
Nicole, I want to hear your comments on this. This is how I see it. And here comes the positive side. Sure, we can't raise as much as these billionaires. I told you, the system is set up for us to fail. But there are billionaires, thank God, and some other wealthy people that do have some ethics and want to have regular people in office, and so we can get in and change the system. But the only way to attract their attention is for us to raise enough on the local level so that we can have some kindling. So I can go when I make these calls or we do this outreach, I can say, we've raised a few $100,000. Can you pitch in? And guess what? I will talk to people that are wealthy donors, and they'll say, yes, how much have you raised on your own? And if I can say a couple 100,000, they get excited.
So there's circles of giving, right? And when we teach classes on political fundraising, and it's tradition, it is there, right? There are studies that show, you have to start with your inner circle or your network in order to get to this second tier of network that are national or statewide donors that have a history of giving at a higher level to Democrats, right, across the country or across the state. And, we were talking about earlier, worrying about how some of these phone calls impact your personal relationships and people hanging up on you. And it's weird and it's uncomfortable. But then with this sort of second tier of commonly known major investors, they expect those phone calls from you. And if you don't call them and ask yourself, they see that as, well, you're not viable to be in office then. If you don't have the guts to call me and convince me that you belong in office. Yeah. And
well, again, I will say I have been exposed. So I've been exposed to a lot of interesting people because of this. People who started to believe in me that don't live right around the corner. And, I've had events in New York City at private homes in New York City where I've gone to meet people who've become my friends. So, I hate to say it, you kind of, in some ways, I've created a whole new circle of friends. And, not all wealthy people either. Artists, physicians, people who are just involved in political fundraising.
Well, can I say that's why I hate to toot the campaign finance horn over communications or fields because it's all critical to winning, frankly. But a lot of people look down on political fundraising, and there's nothing sexy about any of this. I don't care what anyone tells you. But with fundraising, I mean, whether it's members of a union to presidents of big important companies to just people who are philanthropists in their own community raising for a specific great cause. Like, you get to meet people from all ends of the spectrum and in all walks of life, and it really does enhance your network. And you'd be surprised how easy it is to overlook some of those opportunities to build support and momentum for one's campaign.
Yes, I agree with that, but I do not change my position. I think the system is designed for regular people to be kept out and for regular people to fail. And one of my first priorities, if I get to Congress, is to push for campaign finance reform. Citizens United marks a landmark or a crucial moment in the destruction of American democracy. And it has had there is dark money everywhere. I mean, I can tell you right now, I don't trust super PACs as far as I can throw them. And when I go to, all PACs are not the same, but when every single police record that's ever been, every place I've ever lived, all the police records have been requested. All my files when I was town supervisor have been requested. When I go outside, people follow me with cameras. When I go to New York City, people follow me with cameras. And who pays for that? Super PACs, the Koch brothers. And then when I see that stuff land in my opponent's commercials, FYI to everybody out there, and I'm getting all heated right now, but if you see that commercial they ran, Build the Wall commercial, Jacobs commercial during the pandemic, which is disgusting, P.S., the footage from that was taken from super PACs. They were paid to follow me around with a camera. So there's a direct relationship between the dark money and especially the GOP machine, and that I think it's wrong. Go ahead.
Well, you can speak to the machine on either side of the aisle, right? Unless you are a self-funding millionaire or you have a network that is guaranteed to raise a certain amount of dollars. It is a difficult ceiling to break through as a first-time candidate, or even a candidate like you, right? You have your viability. No one could possibly question your viability, right? You had one of the closest races in the country, the largest partisan swing in the country of any first-time candidate, and still on the national level, whether it's the national party or certain national donors, unless you are raising a certain amount of money consistently, you can't break through to that second tier. You're not going to get their support.
That's right, but I think we should say to people that what you always tell me, Nicole, which is that we cannot change the system now. We have to work within the system that exists currently, and that's why we have to get on the calls. And to Amanda and Nicole and Cindy, you guys, no one could ever question the amount of work ethic you guys put into this, and how no stone is left unturned. And your commitment to, you know what, I'm going to say it. We hear thank you for your service all the time. Thank you guys for what you do. I mean, it's not easy. I'm going to be honest. This is the hardest thing I've ever been part of is politics, because every bit of your soul goes into it, and it's thankless. And people don't see the hundreds and hundreds of hours that it takes to raise $10,000 for a grassroots candidate.
Right.
That's right. All right. Okay. So, what have we not covered?
It's the right fight, Nate.
Covered events, which have been really derailed with this whole, pandemic that's going on.
Nicole, you're off.
She's having
difficulties. Okay, keep going. You're there. Go ahead.
I hear you. I don't see you.
Now I see you. So go ahead, Amanda. I'm sorry.
So now's the time to pivot to events. And there are, like we mentioned before, there are the wine cave fundraisers, which, bless your heart, if you can get one of those, go for it, I guess. I don't know.
I don't want to do it.
But really, 99% of them look like a bunch of people in an area, in a neighborhood. Maybe they know you, maybe they don't, but somebody opens their home because they believe in a cause, and they get you some cheap box wine and some stale cheese cubes, and they bring everybody together into a room. And
unless you're in South Bristol, I just need to say that.
No, we've had some pretty nice. I mean, I've had some of the best pie and cobbler and God knows what else.
Man. I once had a candidate. The host put his face on a cake. It was his face as a cake, and no one wanted to cut into it.
Well, listen, I've seen a lot of cakes with my face on it, and I didn't make any of them, so don't blame me for that.
Any of those?
But it's communal, right? It's like, even if it's not, necessarily people you find hosts that will open their home to, these are people in my neighborhood that maybe I don't know yet, but they're involved with this church or this organization, or they just happen to be in the area. So I'm going to open my home to them so we can all meet this candidate. And there's a sense of community and organizing it, like community building, right? That we cannot do right now. I will say I do not have any masks. I do have I have one of those like painter's masks that looks like a World War II sort of gas
mask.
I don't want to wear to the grocery store, but like I'm thinking about it. So we can't do that. And Cindy has been integral, and I'm sure she can pick up from here. It's almost easier now to do virtual fundraisers because, one, we know you're home. We're gonna find you. Don't have to. It's not like you're out going to dinner. You're not
sitting in this office.
You're not going to the movies. That's
right.
But also, we can connect people by interest, right? Like, we can connect people. It doesn't matter where you are. You have a national fundraising list of Democrats across the country, and if it's people who care about Planned Parenthood, if it's people who care about whatever their issue is, we can sort of fundraise around that and get a whole bunch of people in a room together and hear what you have to say about a thing.
Hey, so that was well said, a minute. But Cindy, before you jump into this real quick, I want to say, to her point, goodness gracious, I have formed a sense of community. People always say, well, how did you develop that grassroots network? And I'd say, I don't know, 2,000 house parties.
Yeah.
Because when you're in somebody's home, you connect to them in a different way.
Yes.
And because you see how they live, you see, where their kitchen is, you see the kind of pictures they got on the wall, and you form a bond. And as I drive across NY27, I'll see my signs and I'll get very grateful and proud, but I also say, that's my friend who lives there that I had a house party in their house.
Yeah.
I know these people.
Let me throw there too, like, there's sometimes a conception that, it's, and this is a very Republican thing, right? Where they go, oh, Hillary is pay to play, or so-and-so is pay to play, and you have to pay before you can get in her ear, and it's pay to play, whatever that is. For these fundraisers, especially that you've had, and I'm sure it's, finance professionals like myself and Nicole are probably grinding our teeth down to the gum, but we set it very low. There are times where we can meet in public. You do a bunch of
Listen, Amanda, I don't mean this is any offense to Ms. Hillary Clinton. What we're doing is light years different from what she's doing. What we're doing is really grassroots.
Like, that's what I'm saying. We're not putting you behind a wall where no one can access you unless they're a millionaire, right? Like, this is Western New York, where we're working class, blue collar people who just want to, someone to give it to them straight.
No, there's been times, and Cindy, I'm sorry I want to hear what you have to say about all this. And I met you at a house party, Cindy.
Really?
Yes, I did.
Which house party was it?
I don't remember, but I remember it was someplace out in the east side of the district. But listen, I will say to you, talk about access. I was to some very high-profile politicians' fundraisers before, and it was like, I don't know, it was like a it's like a Lady Gaga event or something. You'd wait and wait and wait. They come off for 5.
How many of those have been to, Nate? How many?
0. But it was a performance of some sort. I mean, I've been to house parties where I was exhausted by the end of the night because I had to spend 2 or 3 hours answering every possible question and also being shared and listening to every single viewpoint, which is also valuable. But Cindy, go ahead. What are you saying?
Yeah. Well, what you're saying is just true. I mean, the way house parties were in your last campaign were face to face in people's homes, and they varied. I mean, it depended on what the people wanted to do. But the thing that was constant and consistent between all of them is that they got to meet you in person. They got together, and it was always a festive occasion. People were with other people they knew. They were eating, they were drinking. The other thing was people were writing checks, and somebody, I'll write them a check too. When you're in a virtual environment, it's not quite as festive. However, what the virtual environment, as I'm learning as we go along, because this, to everyone out there, this happened after house parties were already scheduled.
We had
already
dozens and
taking
dozens
place.
of them scheduled. Yes.
Yeah. So we had a couple of house parties that actually were face to face before there was a realization what was going
Just a couple.
on.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we ended up having to take house parties that had great plans. I mean, there was one in Scottsville that was really going to be wonderful at a gallery with, Wendell Castle's wife was hosting it, and there were all kinds of prizes donated for a silent auction, and the cheapest ticket was $50. I mean, it was going to be a lot of fun, and we had to take it online. And so that shift was, I think, difficult for everybody. But what I see now that's really exciting is that there are all kinds of possibilities that we have. And Amanda touched on that somewhat, that we didn't have before. I talked to a woman, she's planned a party where all of her guests were going to be from California. It turned out that she's ended up sick and she couldn't do the party, but she grew up here. She loves this area. She moved out to California as a young woman, lived there for 30 years. She's a doctor. She had a big practice out there. And then when her parents became sick, she came back to this area because she loves it. And she's been bringing people back throughout her lifetime. So she wanted to bring you to them and them to you.
But I think the scale of the house parties we had in the past makes me proud. My mind is racing. I've been to some homes that were very humble, and we've had some very, very nice homes. And
you talk about when I first met you, and that's the day I met Cindy. I've seen a lot of house parties over the years.
I haven't heard the story. Can y'all tell me the story?
I don't know what you're talking about either. Yeah.
The one in South Bristol, the Benhams. Yeah. I mean, one, it's a magical place, but again, been to a lot of house parties. To Amanda's point, there's a lot of stale cheese and boxed wine. The excitement and
not there.
That's my benefits package.
No, exactly. No. When I joined the campaign, it was definitely in 2018. It was shocking. This really incredible foundation of grassroots support. And I know you're always saying barbecues and I mean, it was all done out of the trunk of your car in a way. So when my first event with you was at the Benhams, Cindy was working the door. That's when I met her, and I walked in, and it felt like I was walking into the Wizard of Oz. It was glorious. I mean, everything. It was more about the people than, obviously the location was fantastic. The food and the wine, it was all just so lovely, but it was the people in the room and their excitement for you and the way they were. People with your t-shirts all over I had never seen anything like it, honestly.
Well, what you have done over this time is you've built up this network of people who frankly love you so much that they want to have these parties for you because they want to they want more people to meet you, because people know, and I'm sorry if I'm embarrassing you, but everybody knows if you meet Nate McMurray, you love Nate McMurray. That's just how it works. So
you're good. Listen, listen, I love you guys.
Tone it down.
Listen,
parties are important.
Could you make this man any redder? Look at him. He's already
listen to me real quick. Listen to me real quick. I want to say to you this. I want to say I do believe in the community outreach. I'm devastated that we're doing this COVID thing because we're stuck in our house. And I can tell you right now, the people we're up against are so happy the fact that they don't have to meet me on the road all the time, and they don't have to debate me or see. Because I think that was when I first ran for office, someone very high up in local politics said to me, don't for a second think you're going to be standing in the corner talking to people like Douglas versus Lincoln. It doesn't work like that. This is not. But you know what? I'm going to say something that no one else says. Yes, it does work like that. You have to be out in the community talking to people, out having events, shaking hands, being creative, unless you're just a rich guy who can buy commercials. And for most of us, we're not rich guys buying the commercials. And I want to leave this, and I want to hear your thoughts on this. I want people to be involved in politics so we can get more people involved so we can change these campaign finance rules. And if we scare people away saying you need to raise as much money as Chris Jacobs, they're not going to do it. We don't need as much money as Chris Jacobs. He's think about how much money he blew on those commercials that already made him look like a crazy person. We don't need that much money, but we need enough money to fight. And if anything's been proven in recent years in politics, is money does not buy elections. Ask Bloomberg. Okay.
Well, let's talk about that. So
Go ahead.
when we're having this conversation about, kind of how the sausage is made, let's talk about what we're actually what we're spending our money on versus what Republicans spend their money on.
Go ahead. I don't know what you're getting at. Go.
Well, let me continue, sir.
Yeah.
So
Opening up the hood.
So this is, and I have, again, we kind of touched on this, I have friends around the country that are working on different campaigns at different levels. They're working on state level races, they're working on federal races, they're working on mayoral races, they're working on whatever. And everyone on the Democratic side has to make tough decisions about what they're raising, what they're making, this very utilitarian sort of decision of, do I let my staff go and put a bunch of money on a TV ads, or vice versa, or how does that game out?
The same conversations we've had.
We've had the conversation, and where we've landed is our staff is super valuable, and they're working very hard, and they care a lot, and that has value to us.
Let's figure out a way to hold on to them. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So, and Nicole knows this because the first time I worked on a campaign was against Chris Jacobs with her in 2016. Chris Jacobs, just in a Democratic leaning district, he won for the simple fact that he could afford to pull some spare change out of his pocket and put commercials on during Sunday football. That was the whole thing.
People would actually say to Amber Small was the candidate, I like you, but I know Chris Jacobs can raise more money, so I'm investing over there. To know that is how some elections are predicted it's a sad reality for.
And his commercial, by the way, was 2 words: term limits, and he never did a thing about term limits. State senator.
Please go on about that, because that's a really interesting point.
What? Which point? The point that he just made a commercial that he never even acted on?
Yeah.
Yeah, he never did a thing about it. I mean, even on the town level, little old me passed a term limits law. And, the fact that this guy is never really – he has no record, but he's going to run on commercials. And he's going to look at the camera and smile and say, hey, I'm like you, when he is nothing like you. And I want to say, like I told you in the beginning, I don't pull punches. I don't hide who I am. The Jacobs have bought election after election after election across the country, and they are trying to buy NY27.
Yes.
And let's hope the people out there listening do the research. They spend hundreds of thousands of dollars in a town council race in Florida. They think they can buy elections. So you need to get involved and let them not buy elections.
To benefit who?
Yeah, not to benefit the people. You think the benefit the people in Batavia?
Right.
You think the benefit people in Albion?
To represent the people of Batavia.
Well, Nate, can I do the herding cats thing that I do?
Go ahead.
So much to discuss here. We've always known it was difficult to raise dollars right? We're the underdog no matter what, because you're running as a Democrat in the reddest district in the state of New York against a self-funding millionaire, right?
Yep.
So now you take those difficulties and you add on the fact that we're in the middle of.
It's a good place to go. Yeah.
We're still putting in the work, right? We're doing what we have to do to make sure your message is up on TV, that we can keep staff on, which has been a very real, as you pointed out, a very real factor for us. And while we might not have some of the tools that self-funding millionaires or people with very direct connections to the establishment on either side of the aisle have, you have this incredible grassroots base that has been tremendously supportive on a number of levels. I mean,
thank you to everybody out there. The phone calls that are being made. We're in this, and we've been in this since the beginning because, we have a team. And I always say I'm the tip of the spear, and I'm lucky enough to be part of this team. But the team is much bigger than me. So sorry, keep going.
You're the only one. We've got our team as well as volunteers making calls from home. Again, calling people across the district that are normally voter contact calls to say, hey, who you voting for? Vote for Nate. But instead we're calling them, we're saying, are you okay? Is your family okay? What do you need? We'll try to connect you to whatever resources that we're aware of, right? Pulling our research together. So I want to bring it back to how critical, whatever, self-funding millionaires, super PACs.
So you're getting to the point where I'll just say it, because I got used to asking people for money in call time. If you can give money to the campaign, please give money to the campaign. The money will be used to pay for commercials. Number one, we want to be on television and give a positive message about where this country can go.
Which is about $10,000 a day.
Right. So we need to get commercials on the air. Tell your friends to support this campaign, because, as I say over and over again, if we win here, this is the only special election in the country.
And what else? Why do we know that Donald Trump himself is watching this district as we speak? What's some recent news
why are they nervous?
Well, Caputo, who was, lying about me bringing Steve Bannon here, is now part of Trump's team. So we know they know this race. Caputo has done nothing but talk bad about me and make things up about me for the last, 3 years, 3+ years.
You worked for Trump before.
And he convinced good Republicans and independents to vote for a man saying words like, I know this man is indicted, but you need to vote for him to keep the district red. And look where we are today. I mean, the party
right. He's the person who connected Trump to Collins. He is a key figure in this horrible moment in our country's history, and he's from NY27. We're the epicenter.
Field for Chris Jacobs, because he wanted you running against a self-funding millionaire in the special. They don't. That's all they care about.
Right. So Trump has endorsed my opponent. Steve Bannon has been here. Collins was the first to support Trump. Caputo put Collins and Trump into contact with each other, and now Caputo's in the White House. Whether D.C. wants to recognize this or not, or Democratic National Party wants to recognize this or not, this is the epicenter. If we win here, it'll have a huge impact across the country. Trump, before Trump, was organizing fake rallies in Michigan. He was organizing fake rallies to support his purchase of the Buffalo Bills right here. This is where he's cut his teeth on dirty politics. So that's
such an ongoing thing. I kind of feel like that has little tentacles into everything that's going on. Is he's so spurned and so spiteful that he couldn't buy the Bills.
Well,
we're dealing with it.
Thank God he didn't.
But
so ego driven.
Still a thing.
Thank God he didn't.
Well, Nate, I just again, before we get too much more into the politics, I just want to say, Cindy, we do have an opportunity, right, to really make an impact before the November elections, right? We know that. And you have this base of people that know, it's undeniable across Western New York. People recognize you even in New York City when we go there. What we need to make sure we're hitting home to people is that, yes, give whatever you can possibly afford, but getting your friends and family together to learn about who you are as a candidate and learn about the district and learn about why this is so critical. It isn't.
All right.
We need people to understand that we need that kind of support.
Because if I can jump in,
Go ahead, Cindy.
Yeah, what I want to jump in is that, we want people to donate directly, but with a house party, you're creating a bigger circle, right? And now it's so it's really a lot easier to throw a house party because you don't have to clean your house.
Yeah.
You can have it in your pajamas because you're doing it like this.
We should do that. Maybe we should do like a pajama party for Nate.
Yeah.
I think we should do it. I think we should do an online hair cutting party. I haven't cut my hair since things.
Yeah, but all we ask people to do is to basically the role of the host now isn't to throw a party in the traditional way. It's to develop your email list. Think about people who care about this district, who want somebody like Nate to represent them, who they want right now. Big deal is healthcare, right?
Right.
Nate's for healthcare for everyone. I don't think his opponent is. So, I mean, gather your email and we'll do the rest of the work.
So if someone wants to do a house party, a digital house party, they can contact Cindy.
Yeah.
And if somebody wants to donate to the campaign, go to votemcmurray.com. I think we should do another one of these where we talk about messaging and the importance of finding your voice as a candidate, which we did as part of our boot camp that we did, Nicole, last summer. And I thought was very, very effective because I think that so many people either lose their voice as a candidate or pretend they have to be somebody else. And I think it'd be fun to do a discussion about that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree.
If I can jump in on that too, like having worked in a number of very deep red districts, there are Democrats here. There are liberals, there are progressives, but the National Party has not spent money to organize us. The money that, should be there to get us in touch, to get us on email lists, talking to each other, building momentum just hasn't been there. And the more that we can kind of invest in getting together, especially now that it only takes clicking into a Zoom meeting or whatever it is, the better we are, because we're here. We've been gerrymandered into weird little districts, but we're here and we care, and a lot of the opposition wants to think that, there's not support here, and there really is.
Amanda, that is such a good point. When I first started, people told me there's no Democrats out there. I'm like, there are Democrats out there. I've seen them. I've filled, we've had gymnasiums with hundreds of them.
Yes.
There are Democrats out here. In fact, even though the enrollment's so bad, it's still not that off 50-50.
Well,
go ahead.
Like, obviously, I'm sorry. I just want to make sure we're not getting too campaign manager mode. Not only are there Democrats, but there are also just a lot of independent thinking, just voters.
Right. But I agree with you, Nicole. But to Amanda's point, a lot of times when I talk to national figures, that one of the things they're most interested in is, holy cow, you've really created a network where we thought we can't create networks. So as we continue to build our network, like Lima, when I was in Lima recently.
Lima.
Sorry, Lima. I'm so sensitive to it. I overcorrect. When I was in Lima recently,
I feel like this happened before.
I know. I always do. I overcorrect. When I was in Lima recently, I saw the McMurray signs. I thought, holy cow, we are building a network that's going to be used by candidates to come, future candidates, and by the national organizations themselves, like we talked about earlier. So when you're calling Cindy, when you're helping us build our mailing list, when you're helping us build our phone list, when you're doing phone calls from home, you're fighting a good fight. And the whole policy that I believe in is that fight like hell, fight everywhere, because you don't give up on any fights. There's no unwinnable district. There's no unwinnable town race. There's no unwinnable seat. And I really believe that, and I've seen it firsthand. If you believe, people will come to you, and people really don't want the same old, same old. For a lot of younger people in America, especially, it's not about left versus right. It's about power versus powerless. And a lot of people feel powerless, and they want someone to fight on their behalf.
For sure.
I think, Nate, when it comes to you in this district, it doesn't matter what age they are, and there's been really impressive articles, whether last cycle or now, that really speak to your independence and how critical that is now, right? There's no question of how divided the country is. So, of course, we're used to kind of some of that typical narrative leading up to particularly the presidential primary, but really people want an independent voice who's willing to just do what is best for the people, right?
Well, if anybody, I think you guys know, sadly, because you have to work with me on a daily basis. But if anybody knows I'm independent, it's you guys.
Right.
I'm gonna follow my heart and my conscience. I'm not.
That's kind of the funny thing, and funny, haha. But the funny thing is, typically you find in any given district a Republican who's gonna be like, I'm the independence voter. The independence, and that is, a weird sort of cover for I'm a libertarian or I'm whatever, I'm the independent voter. But right now we have a situation where the wealthiest Republican on the ticket, who used to be a moderate, is now trying to paint himself as an independent.
It's so fake. I don't think anyone's buying it, though. I really don't.
It's all marketing, and that's the thing about this district. Like, look, I grew up in Western New York. I went to school.
We all did.
We all grew up here. Like, no one's buying your nonsense. We all have Irish or Polish or German or Italian grandmothers who are seeing right through your nonsense, and they're not. You can't be Republican when it's convenient and Trumpy when it's convenient, and people believe you. That is not what this district is.
People want real, and I think if we can get our message out there, people will be with us. Listen, let's wrap this up, because we could talk all night. I'm proud of my team. I'm proud of you guys. I'm grateful to have you around and to have my back. Thank you for seeing beyond my shortcomings, and thank you for seeing beyond my limitations as a human being and as a candidate.
It takes a village.
Any final words anybody wants to share before Nicole? Any final words?
Cindy, you can answer this, but if anybody's interested in learning more about hosting a virtual house party for Nate, they can email Cindy, Cindy, at votemcmurray.com. What else, Cindy?
I'd just be happy to talk to you. We'll put our heads together and come up with something fun and interesting, and maybe find you a co-host so that you're not just using your own universe. We're putting people together. I mean, there's a lot of cool things coming up that I want to mention. There's one party next week that's going to be really different, because it's a local Orchard Park musician who is you're going to be doing a conversation. Doug Yeomans, a conversation and some music. And we're doing some fun stuff. And to have a house party, you don't have to be creative. You just have to be willing to get people together. And maybe you have a friend who's creative and can help with that. We're willing to try anything.
Absolutely.
Just about.
Love it. Cindy, you're the best.
You're the best. You're all the best.
Oh,
it's a great team. Seriously, this is a wonderful team. Everybody out there, Nate has a fantastic staff. They're just fabulous. They're smart. They're energetic. They're dedicated. It's crazy how wonderful they are.
Cindy, I don't have the emotional bandwidth for this right now. COVID-19. You're so sweet. Love you.
She does. Stop it. She does. She's got endless capacity. Get out of here.
Something like that. All for a good cause. We're fighting the right fight, Nate.
Thank y'all for chatting.